David Seymour.
Mr Chair, it gives me great pleasure to rise on behalf of the Speaker. On behalf of the ACT Party. I would never purport to rise on behalf of the Speaker, but you know, a little bit of ambition can go a long way. Mr Chairman, I'm struck by the fact that many of the arguments I made in Part 1 with respect to the extension of paid parental leave entitlement from 18 weeks to 22 are also quite relevant to this particular Part 2 on the extension of paid parental leave to 26 weeks.
Does this mean we're going to have 4 calls replacing them?
Mr Chair, how many would you like?
One good one. Great.
Mr Chair, if I can't do that, would you take 4 bad ones?
Go for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, there's actually a number of topics, but thankfully Tracy Martin has actually given me fresh material in her contribution, which is around gender equity. And her claim is that the extension of paid parental leave by 4 weeks from 22 to 26 will be mainly occupied by fathers. And her claim can be further extended that it will actually lead to a cultural change in gender relations in New Zealand. In other words, she believes that men, hitherto somewhat unfamiliar with domestic chores and duties, will find themselves taking that extra 4 weeks off and discovering a whole lot of things about parenthood that they wouldn't otherwise understand. Mr Chairman, give me a break. Never has there been somebody so out of touch with the modern reality of New Zealand. That might be the 1950s worldview that we hear from New Zealand First, but the reality is that my friends who are parents, the fathers are deeply involved in every aspect of childcare, and they do not need an extra 4 weeks of paid parental leave to achieve that. And so, as usual, Mr Chairman, Tracy Martin is an inspiration. I wish I was as clever as she thinks she is, but few of us ever can be. The reality is, Mr Speaker, if you go a little bit deeper into her argument, it's not entirely obvious that an extension of paid parental leave really would lead to men or fathers taking a larger role in the household. Mr Chair, it might well be, and I'd be interested to hear from the member in charge if she's considered the implications for gender equity of this bill, it might well be that an extension from 22 weeks to 26 would actually leads to women taking more time off work and men being even further shut out of parenthood. Mr Chair, it is really not obvious what the real effect would be on the roles of different parents, even if we buy into Tracy Martin's rather imaginative and out-of-touch version of gender relations in New Zealand in 2016. But I say to her, on behalf of the fathers in New Zealand who are intimately and deeply involved in their children's upbringing, that it is frankly a little bit offensive that the only way that will be kick-started into fatherhood is by an extra 4 weeks of paid parental leave extended from 22 weeks up to 26. Point of order.
Point of order, David Seymour.
Mr Chair, standing orders require that a running commentary is not allowed when members are barracking. I haven't had a moment's respite from Tracy Martin screeching. I wonder if you could call her into line.
I'd like to sustain that point of order. In fact, the member may well have been reading my thoughts. The member interjecting constantly, a constant flow across the chamber is contrary to standing orders and just a little bit more than the rest of us can stand.
Mr Chair, thank you for sustaining that point of order, and it might interest you to know that as one ages, one's ability to hear higher frequencies diminishes, which is why the Leader of New Zealand First has been able to tolerate that member for so long.
Point of order, Tracy Martin.
Sir, are you going to allow that sort of sexist comment to be made in this House?
I don't believe that. Firstly, I did hear a number of the interjections that the member made to the member who has the call currently, And I understand that we have been having quite a robust debate. I don't believe, as the chair, that that was a sexist remark, and so I'm not going to take issue with it at the moment. I'd like all members to be a little bit more sensitive as to what may cause offence within the House.
Speaking to the point of order.
No, I've ruled on the point of order. Get on with your speech.
Mr Chair, that's exactly what I'll do, but I'll just point out that elderly hearing loss occurs in men and women. I was not being sexist towards the Leader of New Zealand First. Mr Chair, there's a number of other matters on this part of the bill which I think deserve attention other than gender equity and the role of fathers in New Zealand. One of them is the universality of the uptake, and I think this is important. If it was important in part one, where we discussed the fact that not every parent takes up paid parental leave, then it's even more important when we extend to 26 weeks. So we understand that every year in New Zealand approximately 60,000 children are born. Mr Chair.
Lewis Award.
Mr Chair, it's my pleasure